If you haven't really been paying attention to the news online, you wouldn't have been aware, but EA recently was bought in an unprecedented $55 billion deal by multiple different private equity companies. It really threw me for a loop because they took a $20 billion loan to buy this company, which means EA starts $20 billion in debt because they bought it with a leveraged loan for 20% and 36 billion in just straight investments. So who are the buyers here? You have Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, the PIF. You have Silver Lake and Jared Kushner's affinity partners. This is the biggest private company takeover, not counting Microsoft, but Microsoft was public. Keep in mind, Microsoft bought a public company for another public company. They bought Activision Blizzard King for Xbox, a division of Microsoft, another publicly traded company. EA going private is the biggest gaming company in the world going private, not counting Activision Blizzard King. And that's wild to me because mostly that 25% premium on the market value of EA and making the company go private is interesting to me. Because they have to make that money back. These private equity people are always going to want their cash money returned to them in value in time. They're not going to want to sit there and say, EA, you go do you. They're going to want their investment paid back. How is EA going to repay a $20 billion loan in a reasonable time frame? EA made a net revenue of $7.6 billion in 2024. But what was the net profit? The net profit was 1.2 billion, which means at the current rate, at the current level of the expenditure, right, of like how much they have to spend to make, it would take 17 years to make the money back. 17 years, chat, to make their money back. That is an obscene level of return on investment that's not realistic. No company is taking this stuff private to make 17 years to get their return on investment. Now though, let's take a look at how much EA spent on shareholders. EA paid a total annual dividend of $76 per share in 2024. So, exactly how much revenue was EA paying its shareholders with that net profit it was making, right? The whole point I was bringing in about this is, despite the shareholder dividends and the returns, they're not buying EA to make money off it. They are buying it to lose money. The goal is to lose money. Keep in mind that they're going to show loss after loss after loss, and they're going to use that to pay zero taxes. People don't look at corporations and they don't look at dividends, they don't look at any of this stuff when they're taking a company private. They look at how much they can cut their taxes in other divisions of their companies. Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. You have all these different corporations and these private equity firms that pay a lot of taxes that want to pay no taxes. Every year EA doesn't make profit. Every year EA loses money. Every year that EA is a net loss is actually a net profit for these companies. Keep in mind that Silver Lake, the private equity firm, is a lot bigger than people realize. So this is just right off the bat. Key holdings for Silver Lake. This is the AI overview, but if you look at the Wikipedia of the other companies, you can see more there. They own Endeavor, which is WWE and UFC. They own Qualtrics, Zora, Altera, Diamond Baseball Holdings. They also have a huge holdings in publicly traded investments. For example, First Advantage, Global Blue Group, Unity Software. So these private equity firms make a lot of money on multiple different avenues, multiple different locations, multiple different investments. Tax losses is what they're after here. Now, they also do, let's be real here, expect to make a profit. They even said in one of their statements here, the revenue generated by big games like EA Sport FC, Madden, Battlefield 6 will be needed to service this debt, which may impact EA's ability to invest in new games. Other industry concerns are whether this might lead to further cuts at EA, especially if there's pressure from the private company to deliver stronger cash flow, again to serve that debt. Now, we looked at Silver Lake, but there's two other avenues here. Jared Kushner's affinity partners and Saudi Arabia's PIF. Saudi Arabia has been spending a lot of money to whitewash the image or sports wash the image or whatever terminology you really want to use here to say. They care about fixing their global image, and this is the multi-trillion-dollar fund, right? The Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund is pretty large. Now, this is, again, we're looking at the AI overview, but you look at the investments in like Wikipedia, other articles, it all does correlate here. 1.15 trillion in assets under management. And they have experienced significant growth, getting a 19% year-on-year increase. Keep in mind, this is also funded by Saudi money, oil money, other investments. This is one of many funds they have access to. The Saudi Arabian investment in total of value over $2 to $3 trillion on the well-known end of things. We don't know about their private investments, their private holdings, their private things. So you look at all of these investments, all of these corporations, all of these hands coming into it. Saudi Arabia is buying this for more than just money. They can afford to lose 20 billion, not really bat an eye. Somebody's probably going to get a little bit of a lashing or a talking to. My son, you have made a bad investment. You bring shame to the family. You only get one yacht this summer. But the jokes aside, they are going into this, buying this for reasons that are beyond just making money and profit immediately off the gaming investment right now. They don't plan on holding these investments, holding this money to make immediate returns. Tax cuts, rebranding, image clearing, long-term investments. Keep in mind, Saudi Arabia is trying to diversify their portfolio from more than just oil money. They want to have oil be less than 20% of their net revenue by the end of, I think, 2050 was the goal, or 2035. They don't want oil to be their primary source of income. So they've been buying and investing globally in many, many different groups. Keep in mind that in 2025, March 2025, they paid $3.5 billion to purchase Niantic, Pokemon Go. They purchased Scopely Inc., $4.9 billion in 2023. They're also hosting the World Cup in 2027 by owning EA Football Club and hosting the World Cup. They're going to be making a lot of money. Now, at the end of the day, you look at all of these different like investments and different funds of what their plans are and what their goals are here. But this is genuinely concerning for the gaming industry because in regards to censorship and subliminal messaging in these games and IPs, keep in mind, they own Dragon Age. Actually, I do want to say one thing. Under Saudi Arabia, we would not have gotten Dragon Age Veilguard. So that is a potential good thing. So maybe Dragon Age 5 will be a somewhat decent game, but that's a whole different topic. Regardless, I'm very hesitant to say this is a good purchase for gaming, for the community as a whole. But I don't want to say it's a bad purchase, because EA does do things in a rather interesting manner. They're not a perfect company. It's a good company to work for, but in regards to games released and products finished, they have an interesting track record. But Battlefield 6 looks good. But at the same time, they released Veilguard as well recently. So it's not a one-to-one. Overall, if I had to give a flat statement, it is bad for gaming. And we should not be letting these companies be bought up by foreign investment firms and foreign equities. But in the grand scheme of things, it can't really be worse than public shareholders. So we'll keep an open eye and see what happens and what comes of this. So thank you all for watching and listening. This is terrible gaming news. Welcome to Eben News. Thank you all. Eben out. Peace.